All
Yeah.
right.
So
We got on long awaited Stu McMillan of ALTIS. Awesome to have you on. You guys are catching us right in the middle of a conversation and just catching up. So Brooker, go on.
yeah, so Stu was just telling me about his varied and mixed gypsy upbringing around all around the world, and I just
Hey, listen,
asked,
are we allowed to say gypsy? Is that a politically correct word to say anymore? I think we are,
I
aren't we?
don't. I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. We've got mixed territories we're coming from here, Stu.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I lived in nine different places in the UK in 12 years before
Yeah.
moving to Canada when I was 12. And then I lived in Calgary in Alberta until I was 40. And then I moved back to the UK and lived in London for 3 years. And then I moved here to Phoenix. And
Right.
yeah, I've been here since, other than a quick 3 year hiatus to Atlanta. And then Atlanta up until the end of the Paris Games. And now we've moved back to Arizona, back to the desert where it's currently 76 degrees.
But what's life like there in Arizona?
It's good, mate. It's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, it's peaceful out here. It's a desert, so it's there's not a lot to do from getting in trouble perspective. So, but I like the outdoors. I like going hiking, and there's lots of mountains here. It's like kind of a mountainous desert, so it's good. Like it's really peaceful. It's a big, big open city, and there's good food here. There's some nice restaurants, some good hiking, as I say, and really great weather for training up
Mhm.
until about June. And then June, you just got to leave.
That
It's
bad.
it's not fun after June. So I try to spend June, July, August, September in Europe,
Oh.
or almost anywhere other than the middle of a desert.
Sounds
So
good.
so when you were uh, 12, 12 to 40 up in Alberta, first off, you want to talk beautiful. I bet it was gorgeous up there. No?
Mate, it's one of my regrets. I don't have few, or I have few. I don't have many. Um, that I didn't really take advantage of living where I was. I was when I'd gotten there, I was already a soccer player. Like that was my sport. And any free time that I had, I just played that. And because of that, I didn't get into any of the traditional Canadian winter sports. I didn't get into hockey at all. I've been on skates once. I didn't get into skiing or snowboarding. I didn't do any of that stuff. So even though I was 45-minute drive away from the mountains and some beautiful mountains, like some of the nicest looking mountains in the world, I never went. I lived there for 28 years and I was in the mountains a dozen times in 28 years. And I really regret that. It's I hated the snow, so I didn't ski at all. But I mean, it's even in the summer, to go up there and spend some time hiking through the mountains and the lakes, and yeah, yeah, I really regret not doing that. But it is beautiful for sure, but it's just cold, man. It's hella cold. Like it snows way too much. It's too cold for too long of the year. I was looking for reasons to leave, or ways to leave Calgary since about 2000, and I finally was able to get it in 2010 when I moved back to the UK.
So were
And
you playing pro football then when you were in Canada, or were you coaching already then?
So I started when I was 12. I was just a decent player. Like I was either the best player on a really bad team or one of the worst players on a really good team, and that was kind of my entire football career. And I played up to a pretty elite level in Canada, which isn't super elite. It's maybe the equivalent of League One or League Two in England. Like I was never good enough to be a professional. And
Mm.
that's kind of what led me down the coaching route. It's like most coaches are just failed athletes in some sense, right? I wasn't good enough to be super elite and actually have a real career. So I just got into coaching. And that's actually what also got me into speed and power. I was really fast as a footballer. I was a striker, and the one thing I had going for me was I was faster than most of the rest of the players, and they could just put a ball over the top and I would chase it and get the ball. And then it's 50-50 whether I was round the keeper and score or not. But I found out pretty quick when I tried track after finishing football that I was just a fast footballer. I was not a fast sprinter at all. Uh, but I was super interested in being faster and trying to be faster. So, that sort of started the coaching journey for me.
And what kind of age is this then?
This would have been 92, 93, 94. That was so 92, 93 is when I was playing at the highest level in football, that I ever played at. And then 93, 94, I transitioned into sprinting. So I would have been 24, 25. And that's I'd already started coaching. My dad was a coach, right? That's sort of got me into coaching. He was the coaching coordinator at a local club in Calgary. And I started coaching the U11s, so the under 11 team, when I was 14. And I coached football ever since, right up until 2002. And I was coaching a professional team in Calgary called the Calgary Storm, and helping out with them. And that's in 2002 is when I had to just do odd jobs basically up until then, and coach for free, and help for free, and just do whatever it took to feed this coaching habit, or this speed power habit that I had. And then in 2002, I was finally got my first job as a professional coach, as the coach of the US bobsled team. And then I could finally just get rid of all the other stuff that I was doing and just coach. So it was, but up until that point, odd jobs here, there, everywhere. And, even coaching the Calgary Storm, the professional soccer team in Calgary, I don't know what I made doing that, maybe $150 a month, $250 a month, something like that. Mate, you guys have it lucky. You young people, you have no idea what us old folks had to go through back in the day.
Yeah.
We've heard it. We've heard.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I mean, Randy had it even worse. Lion. I don't know. You guys talked to Randy a few weeks back, but it's yeah, I can't even imagine.
Why didn't you want to stay in soccer for coaching?
Probably because I didn't see a pathway. I mean, that was my sport. It's still my sport. If you said, "What's your sport?" It's, I make a living in track and field, but it's my sport is football. That's what I really love. It's what I've always loved to do. But there was no pathway in Canada at the time. Maybe now, MLS, and it's huge. There's to get a team in the MLS now is $1 billion, right? Start a franchise. Back then, the MLS didn't even exist. I mean, there was a couple professional leagues, but there was no money to be made. There's no money at all in Canadian soccer. So that isn't it. And I'm in Calgary, and it's winter 6 months of the year. And there's a downside to that, meaning that it's winter for 6 months of the year. But the upside is it's the center, it's the hub for all winter sport in Canada. It still is.
Yeah.
And there was, 15, 18, 20 national teams based in Calgary. And it was just a great place okay, this is what's going on in sport here. Bobsled, skeleton, downhill skiing, speed skating, whatever. Let me get involved in that. And that just became it. That was what was available as somebody who wanted to work in sport. In Calgary, it was winter national team sport.
So if you had it how come you didn't try college? If you had it your way, would you be a coach for soccer?
If I had to do it again,
Yeah.
I'd probably be a rock star. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't have gone down this route. I'd have done something else. This is too hard, man. I've been grinding way too long. No, I don't know. Like there was not even that. Like college sport in Canada, I mean, it's
Yeah.
still the same. Like if you were the head coach of the University of Calgary team, you might have made $3,000 for the year.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't it. The football coaches might have made $25,000 to $30,000. The head football coach.
Mhm.
So it wasn't a thing. Like it was in Canada, you worked in amateur sport or you didn't work. And it wasn't like there was a ton more money in amateur sport, but at least, it's federally funded, and there were jobs there. So it's yeah, there just wasn't an availability in anywhere else. I didn't see it. And it took me a while, it took me a long, long time to figure out, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I just really, really enjoyed sport and working in sport and coaching, but I didn't really think that this was going to be a career for me until, the late 90s. Okay, this is now what I want to do. This is it. And now I have to put myself in positions where this can happen for me, which eventually did with USA Bobsled.
So did you start US bobsled before you went then to the UK after Canada for that
Oh
3 years?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started working with bobsledders in 1998 when I started working with some of the Canadian women bobsledders. So women's bobsled was a brand new thing. Canada had a team of primarily female track athletes, and I was working in track at the time. And they all came to me and said, "Hey, we want to do this bobsled thing. Can you help me?" Yeah, okay. So I started working with them. And, I don't know anything about driving a bobsled. I still don't. But bobsled, there's three things. There's the equipment that you drive, there's the drive, and there's the start. And each of those three are really important. You cannot win unless you're super elite at all three of them. So the start is important. And that's just being big, strong, powerful, and fast. And that's what I kind of knew about, right? That was my reputation at the time, is I'm the guy that people went to get faster. So that's when I started working with female bobsledders. And one of the Canadian females was working with one of the top American males. So I started coaching him. And then the next year, him and his crew. And then the 2001, 2002 season, this is the Salt Lake City Olympic Games season. I had most of the Olympians. So of 10, I think I was coaching 7 of them. And then the following season, I was offered the job with the full team. And then I was coaching US and Canadian bobsledders from there until 2010 games, which was 2 Olympic Games later. They were the Vancouver Games. And then after then, I think those games finished February 28th. And I was on a plane to London on March 1st to work back in UK athletics.
Oh, wow. I've always heard from the athletes that went to the Vancouver Games, they were the best Olympics they ever went to. Was it a blast?
Mate, it was great. Yeah, it was a really, really good games. It's a beautiful city. It's one of the best cities in the world. Vancouver's an incredible city, but Whistler is also amazing. And Whistler is where most of the mountain sports were based. So that's where bobsled was. I was working with some speed skaters as well. So I was back and forth. Spent some time up in Whistler, some time down in Vancouver. Amazing. Yeah, it was just Canada does a great job, as you can imagine. They do. Like they just really work hard to do as good a job on things as they can. It's up until that point, it was the best games that I'd been to. But I was in London for the London Olympics, working with UK athletics, the biggest summer Olympic sport in the home of athletics. Yeah, you couldn't beat the London Games. That was amazing games. I mean, the city was just buzzing for months. Yeah, it was incredible. But Vancouver was great too. There's been way more bad games than there has been great.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So then
Yeah.
your role in UK athletics, what was that? And were you based up in Loughborough then, I guess?
No, I was based at Lee Valley in London.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So there's 2 centers. UK Athletics had 2 centers, one in Loughborough and one in London, at Lee Valley Athletic Center in the north of London in Tottenham. And yeah, I was based there with my primary mentor, Coach Dan Pfaff. He's the one that sort of brought me over to assist him. And he had a group of 16, 18 athletes. And at that point in his career, he wasn't that interested in working with sprinters anymore. He wanted to work with the jumpers and the throwers and the multi-eventers, and said, "Stu, why don't you come over and deal with all the egos?" I said, "I could do that. And I'm still young enough where, I'll do that." And a great opportunity for me. I was given a group of 3 of the fastest British sprinters of all time: Dwayne Chambers, Christian Malcolm, and Marlon Devonish. So, I mean, what an opportunity. So yeah, I did that until the end of the London Games. And yeah, just that was an amazing experience. I learned so much in London, learned so much working alongside Dan every day. And we had a great staff, a really good support team. UK Athletics had a massive budget, really big education budget, so they had a really good, expertise across the entirety of the system. And we go to a lot of cool places, and yeah, just really, really enjoyed that experience. Set me up for almost everything. So my experience in Calgary and my interactions and my conversations, my relationships with all of the other young S&C coaches at the time in in a profession that didn't really exist really in Canada. We kind of built it. There was a few, but not many. There was, Matt Jordan and myself and a bunch of others. Like it was just and Nick Ward. I mean, we were it. There was like a dozen S&C coaches in the entire country, and six of them were in Calgary. Just a really, really rich community and environment to learn, just to learn the basics of how to do things. And then fast forward for those 2 years in London, and I just look back at those, that decade of building this thing in Canada, or 15 years in Canada, and it's 2 years in London, and man, it's just set me up for everything. Without those two experiences, I wouldn't be doing anything today like I'm doing.
So, so you said Dan was your main mentor. When did that start?
That started in the mid 90s. So I've known Donovan Bailey since about 1992 or 1993. So before he really got into sprinting, like he didn't start full-time sprinting until 94, 95 season. And then he went down and to what would have been Baton Rouge at the time to train with Dan in 94, 95. And that went pretty well. And then he moved with Dan to Texas in 95, 96 and said, listen, Stu, if you're interested, like you're really interested in doing this seriously, knowing more about speed and power and sprinting, you need to come and spend some time with my coach, Dan. I said, all right. So I went down, spent a couple of weeks with Donovan and his group and Dan, and in either the spring of 96 or the spring of 97. It might have been 97. And that was it. Like I was hooked. That just showed me what I wanted to do, who I wanted to become. I thought at that point, and we're talking about 26, 27, 28, and been doing this for a while. Thought I was pretty smart, pretty curious. I was surrounded by smart people. When we had started in Calgary, Poliquin was there, right? So this is Poliquin was there in 91, 92, 93, 94. He moved to Phoenix in 93 or 94. And he's a super smart guy. So I'm watching him and learning from him. And, I felt like, all right, I know what I'm doing. And then I met Dan and said, I'm an idiot. Like, I'm an idiot. I really don't know anything. And then I'd go away and try and this was the best, like, honestly, like this was the best way to learn. This was pre all internet. And I would spend 2 weeks or 3 weeks with Dan. And then we go home. And I just play and experiment and learn and just try and figure out what to do. And then a year later, I'd go and do the same thing again and spend the time with Dan. And this kind of rhythm where you're learning at the hip of like a master coach, and then you spend the rest of the year just trying to figure it out by yourself and all your friends and colleagues experimenting, and then going back and spending 2 or 3 weeks with the master coach again. Amazing. It was looking back, it was just such a great way to learn. Yeah, it was as I said, I'm nowhere without those experiences.
Yeah, I had a similar humbling experience myself where I grew up with DeFranco. Like
Yeah.
I mean, that was my dude from 17 years old until, geez, I don't know. And then I interned for Buddy. And I remember I emailed James Smith and Buddy, and I had emailed Buddy, and James handled all the intern stuff. And at the time on Elite, like James was the Russian nerd. Like me, I used to make fun of him. I used to read Elite and be like, yo, who is this wiener? And I said, who the hell talks like this? And and he had said, he goes, listen, it's an internship for the whole crew. It's not just a Buddy Morris internship. I was like, yeah, but like, I don't want to waste my time with anyone else. Like, just send me with Buddy. So, and I went there and holy shit, like it's the two of them in a room. It was awesome. It was just it was like, yeah, dude, DeFranco taught me so much. I always say DeFranco's like my undergrad, and James and Buddy were like my masters. And then when I came across Dan stuff and ALTIS and all that shit, like that's like my PhD. You know what I mean? Like it was just like the level up that I needed to introduce me to stuff. Dude, I remember I said, listen, I got the training thing down. I really don't understand in-season training. Bro, it's fucking like I was like 24 years old, 25 years old saying that bullshit. You know? Like incredible.
Yeah.
So fucking
It really is incredible, man. I'm 55 now. And like I still look back at things I was doing only 5 years ago and I shake my head at it. I do. I don't think we're ever going to lose that. We're always going to look back at past versions of ourselves and shake our head. So what was that guy thinking? And I look back at the 25-year-old version of me. I was an idiot. And the 30-year-old, but like successful idiot, probably doing pretty good stuff and helping out athletes. But I look back at it and say, man, I didn't know. I didn't have a clue. I really didn't. It's why, I tell Buddy Moore stories all the time because I love that guy. Like we've been gone, as I said, we've been gone from Phoenix for 3 years, and Buddy's been here the whole time. And Buddy used to come by training every 2 to 3 weeks and just spend a day with us because Buddy's obviously the S&C coach for now the return to play coach for the Arizona Cardinals or Diamond Cardinals, yeah. So we were here, we came back, and we've been back now 2 months, and we had a little education event like 2 weeks ago. And guess who I get a text from? Hey, Stu, can I come by your event tomorrow? Yeah, of course, man. But he's still doing it so what is 71?
yeah, something like that.
Is it? Yeah, no, he's 67. And he's still there, man. And he's still this curiosity. He's still there with his notebook and taking notes. And yeah, I love that, man. I love it. And he's probably the same thing. He's probably looking back at that version of himself when he was helping mentor you and saying, man, that guy didn't know a thing. He didn't have a clue. So I feel like it's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, I hope.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope so.
When I was like 25, 26 at DeFranco's, maybe a little older, I started like writing books and writing products and making all this stuff. I haven't done a single thing since because like I'm embarrassed. Like I look back like 2 years after I wrote something or 3 years after I wrote something, I'm like, this is horrible. I got to take this off.
Well, mate, it's the same. Like we have these things that we push out on social media, and I don't run the social media. We've got a team of people that do that for us. And I see things that they're promoting, and I don't know when it's coming out. Like it just comes out, and oh man, like I'm just, I cover my eyes and say, like, and I just did this like last year
Yeah.
or 2 years ago, and I'm already kind of uncomfortable with it. I said, I don't really want this going out publicly, But when I made it, I said, this is great. People are going to love it, And then 1 year, 2 years later, I need to update that. I need to do something new or something different. But it's hard. Like you have to do it. You know what I mean? It's a business, so I
Mhm.
can't stop doing that thing. But yeah, I get really uncomfortable with it. Really do.
So, do you know how long you and I have known each other? I just looked back at our text messages or at our emails, and bro, they date back to like 2013. I think it was earlier than that we've been
Wow.
yeah. I I forget how I came across you. But I absolutely hoard the DeFranco's name probably in the caption just so someone would talk to me. You know what I mean? I was like, hey man, this is Mike Wadango. I work for Joe DeFranco. So
So I am a somebody.
so you could
Don't
talk to
ignore
me.
me.
It's okay, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
But it's you had, and back then it was you had McMillan Speed, and then did you go to like it was then you went to London and then you had the World Athletic Center? Is that what the whack I remember, right? And then it became Altus. How did they give me that timeline?
Yeah, that's about right, I think. I think I got probably prior to heading to London. One of the guys I used to coach, his name is Jason Ross. He's a strength and conditioning coach slash chiropractor. Grand Rapids, Michigan. And he's awesome, by the way. Like he's an incredible coach and incredible therapist, one of the smartest guys I know. He was on the national bobsled team, and he was blogging, early days of blogging, like 2000s, mid 2000s. And he was like blogging almost every day. And we'd have these conversations. And he started blogging when he was in chiropractic school. And he said, man, you should start blogging. Start, this is how you do it. You set up a blogger account and you get a web page, and then you just write stuff and you press publish and people get to read it. I said, I don't know about that. But, we kept having these conversations. And so I eventually did that. And then the blog was called McMillan Speed. And I think that was just right about when I moved to the UK. So it was 09 or 2010. And I just started writing on that. So that's what I did throughout my 2.5 years in London, is I coached till about 2 p.m. every day. And then I'd go find a coffee shop somewhere in central London and read and write a lot. And, I just wrote everything. At the same time as when Twitter kind of started, and I got a Twitter handle. And then Instagram was probably a little bit later than that. And I just started kind of, I started at the same time reading Seth Godin's stuff. And Seth is all about just ship it, just whatever you're thinking, write it down, put it out in the world. Don't judge it. Don't look back on it. Just don't judge, just share it with people. And you'll learn from the interactions that people have with it. And you'll just get better. And that's what I started doing, just, all right, I'll write something, put it out, write something, put it out, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, or my blog. And then after, the experience in London, I finished up there at the end of March and didn't really know what I was going to do. I had a bunch of different offers from different places, had a few opportunities where I'd go and do something on my own or with other people, including one in Jamaica. So doing a training center in Jamaica with Donovan Bailey and Lennox Lewis, and that would have been really cool. But I went to Jamaica for 6 weeks and just found out really clearly that that was not going to work. A white guy, there's absolutely no chance. It would not have worked at all. So I took this job with Welsh Athletics as their head coach, and then I was going to meet those guys in Phoenix for warm weather training camp at the end of April. And so I got to Phoenix. And then through a few of the pole vaulters I was working with, Brad Walker, Steve Hooker, Steve Lewis, they had got to know this guy named John Godina, who had started this company called World Athletic Center. They said, hey, you should talk to John because World Throw Center. You should talk to John because he wants to expand this into all of the other event groups. And then rather than being stuck in Cardiff, Wales, in the rain for the next 4 or 5 years, you could be here in Phoenix, in the desert, the beautiful sun. I said, well, that sounds pretty good. So I had a chat with John Godina, and he offered me the job. And that's sort of how World Athletic Center started. And that would have been 2013. 4 years later, myself and Kevin Tyler and Andreas Bain, we bought the company from John, the founder, renamed it ALTIS. And that's kind of where we are today. We started off as it's kind of a track and field company that did a little bit of education on the side. And now obviously we're the exact reverse of that. We're an education company where 99% of our revenue comes from team sport, and we do some coaching on the side. So I get the best of both worlds. I still get to coach in the sport that I really love, really enjoy, really pushed and challenged by, and then work in these other sports that I'm really excited by, most specifically in soccer, and had the good fortune now of doing consulting work with many Premier League teams and French teams and so on and so forth. So yeah, really enjoying things right now.
So tell me about that purchasing process. How did you manage? One, you came up with the funds. Two, how did you learn to, because business and coaching are two different fucking things. And you started off primarily as a coach, and then you had to become this businessman, this entrepreneur. How did you figure out how to value World Athletic Center? Or did he just say like, hey, listen, give me this amount of money and you got the deal?
The valuation was really, really easy. In 2017, we were going to go out of business. We were $750,000 in debt. And the options were go out of business or take over the company from John for a dollar. And so if I wanted to continue working and building this thing, and we did, we thought, all right, this is really good. But we didn't know the finances. We were the performance people. John was the CEO. And we had some things sort of fall through, and some things were, he probably could have done better, and some things were just pure bad luck. But we found ourselves in this position where we were in massive debt, almost $1 million in the hole. And Kevin, my primary business partner, he's a little bit older than me. Like he's 62 now, I think. And he ran a massive budget. He was head of coaching over in the UK, at UK Athletics when I was there. Ran a massive budget there. Had a really big center in Canada, up in Edmonton, before he moved to the UK. So he's used to numbers and really good at it. So we looked at the numbers over the course of 2 or 3 days and said, all right, we can make this work. We have to make some changes. And unfortunately, we had to let go of a bunch of people. We were just running, way over our heads, spending way too much and making way too little. At the end of the day, that's all it is, right? It's all business is. Spend little and make more. And over the course of time, we did all right. We figured it out. It was really, really hard. Like we're coaching and running the coaching education piece and trying to be entrepreneurs. But we've gotten easily 2 full-time jobs. And then from August of 2017, when we took over, we just chipped away and we chipped away and we chipped away. And by the end of February of 2020, we're debt free. So it took us, a long time, 2.5 years of just chipping away at this debt. Finally debt free, February 2020. So, and you guys know what happened in February of 2020. The world turned upside down, and man, we got killed. We lost, close to $2 million in contracts almost overnight. And, all the grinding, all the work, everything, and then, paying ourselves next to nothing for 2.5 years, which was finally going to pay off for us, went away. And we had to go right back to the start and start grinding again. So it's hard, man, but it's like, you don't get taught how to do all this stuff as a coach. But I think if you're smart and you just think about a couple really simple things, just spend less than you make, you'll do okay. And as long as you're curious and willing to work hard and willing to, continue learning. And I think most coaches have that, I think most coaches could be really good entrepreneurs because most good coaches are, quote unquote, lifelong learners. They're always trying to push themselves and looking for feedback and critique and how they can get better. And I feel like we've done, a pretty good job, and we're still learning. I'm still learning how to become a better coach. I'm definitely still learning how to become a better business person, learning how to become a better leader. At our biggest, we had 34 full-time staff. And that's too big. That was way too much, way too many for people who didn't really know what they were doing. I didn't really know what I was doing, and then leading a team of 34, that was really hard. It's hard with a team of 12, but 34 and then 104 full-time athletes, 50 to 60 visiting athletes, all of the external consulting with different federations and different professional teams. It was chaos for years, chaos. And it's just, I feel like just now, just the last maybe 4 or 5 years, since the others, maybe since COVID. That's the good thing about COVID. It gave us space. We lost all this stuff. So we had to get rid of a few more people again. And it gave us space and time to really work on this. And I feel like that's the upside of that. It did give us that space and time. And now I feel like finally I kind of know what I'm doing.